thick legs on these. Let's put them in the right holes. The brain is controlling everything. Twang that off. Hello, I'm Robin Vincent and welcome back to Modular DIY. Today I am building the Befaco Plethora. Oh yes, it is a whole bunch of noise. It's a module of noise. It generates noise. It creates multiple algorithms of noise, multifaceted, multi-channels of multi-layered, multi-timbreled noise. It's a noise module. What am I going to do with it? I have no clue at the moment, but it's quite interesting to do something more than perhaps a snare sound. That might be fun. Why don't I do something like that? But what we've got to do first is build the thing. So this looks on the surface like a typically kind of thick and dense Befaco build. It's got two PCBs here. It's got a whole bunch of chips and stuff, and a Teensy, which is all running the show. So that's what I'm going to attempt to build this morning. Hopefully it'll only take me 5 minutes, and then we'll test the thing out and see what it does. But come and join me on this little adventure into the noise plethora. Right, for this one I've printed out the latest assembly guide sent to me by Befaco. Thank you for that, just to make sure I've got it right. And it kicks off by thanking us for choosing one of the kits, which is something I always appreciate. I don't like to be congratulated on buying something. I like to be thanked. And that just makes me feel good. So we're kicking off with a great start. So some steps, blah, 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 soldering both boards. You are soldering both boards at the same time. Now this is something that I've missed previously, so I'm going to try my best to actually read everything. Keeping them together, keeping them in the panel together might help you through the build. Okay. So we're not going to split them up, is what you're saying. You're going to keep them together and see how we go with that. Beware of exposed vias. This build is tight, and you might short one if you're not careful. What's a via? V-I-A-S. Vias. Do they mean wires? Do they... What's a via? Oh well, who knows? We learn something new every day. It's probably something really important that people who do soldering should know about. Anyway, enough chit chat. Let's see. Not a whole lot of photos in here. Let's see how we do with this here build. Right, so bag A. Looks like resistor town to me. Diodes, ferrite beads, all those exciting things. Just going to open the PCB just to have a closer look. So this is the fella. Yeah, there's a few components on there. Look at all those resistors. Yeah, nice. And that is the front panel. Right, good. Put that to one side. Bag A. Open bag A. Colour code can be difficult to identify, so we strongly recommend using a multimeter. Well, yeah, I might do that. So there's a couple of ferrite beads. There's some diodes. A whole load of those. Load of those. Lots of resistors. Well, that's good, because I like getting stuck into rows of resistors. So I always see sort of these coloured resistors as being somehow old-fashioned. It's the blue ones that seem to be the modern ones, but I don't know whether that's true anymore. Yeah, they always look like these have sort of been found in the back of a drawer somewhere. Right, so I think I'm going to have to identify all these because there are quite a few. Now, I'm going to know what these ones are because you can do a lot of the identification through numbers. As in, how many are there? So there's a whole load of these. 3, 4, 33 is there supposed to be? 25, 31. Awesome. So 31 of those. And these are brown, black, black, orange, brown. So with a bit of luck, there'll be another 2 which are the same. Brown, black, black, orange, brown. There we go. So I'm going to get labelling these, I think. These are 100k. 10, 14 of brown, black, black, brown, brown. Those are 1k. White, brown. Then there should be 9 of another lot. That's 8. Orange, orange, black, orange. Orange, orange, black, red, brown. Red, red, black. Yellow, violet. Red, yellow, black. Brown, brown, black, green. Oh dear, I'm in trouble now. Red, blue, black, green, black. What? Alright, so I've got a couple here which I'm not entirely sure about, which I'm going to leave for the moment. The single one here is definitely green. Is it green, blue? Yeah, green, blue, black, red, brown. Yes, so that's 56k. Leaving me this, which should be red, violet, orange, which it isn't. And this one, which has got green in it, but isn't the same as that. Okay, so I might have to go back through and double check. So these should be 1K5. And it is 1K5. Brown, green, black, red, brown. Brown, green, black, brown, brown, I get. So that's not entirely what that should be. So for the 1K5, I'm finding a slight discrepancy there. But if you measure it with a multimeter, then you're fine. Then you are fine. And then I've got these two singles left. That should be 56. Yeah. Which means this last one, which also didn't seem to be right, should be 27. 27k. That says red, violet, black, orange, brown. I've got red, brown, black. But it is indeed 27k. So yeah, working out your resistors to start with, it seems frustrating. It seems like I've just wasted a whole load of time, wasted 20 minutes doing that. But it's one of those things which is both slightly frustrating but also vital. I mean, often, as I just said, you can go by how many are there on the strip. Does that match the bill of materials? And then you can make a pretty good guess as to what it actually is. And then you check on the colours, and it is. It normally, 95% of the time all works out that way. So it's relatively straightforward. It's when you get a couple of discrepancies where the colour bands just aren't quite matching up, and your knowledge of colour bands isn't great enough for you to go, oh yeah, that's just one of those. At which point the multimeter should come out and that will sort that out. I mean, I've gone through the whole lot just to be absolutely sure, but we did end up with a couple which are not as advertised. So if you get to that point, your best bet is to measure it every time. Yeah? Good. Let's get some soldering done. With these instructions, all I've got is a whole big list of resistor numbers, where they go on the board. So my best bet is to just go at it. Now, they said you solder both boards at the same time. So there are resistors from this list on both boards. So we're doing this board and we're doing this board. Do I want to keep them together? Keeping them in the panel together might help you, it says. So maybe I will then, in that case. It's just sort of more to contend with, if you know what I mean. So let's stick a bunch of resistors in, let's solder them, and that should be a lovely, pleasurable experience. For me, at least. I'll get on with that, and I will see you on the other end. So that's all the resistors on. Took bleeding ages. I had to go off and do some other stuff. I've now put a jump wrong, so it's a bit chilly in here, and it's pouring with rain, so I'm sorry about that if you're hearing a bit of that coming in. What was interesting though is that I went on to Instagram Live, Instagram television, and did all the soldering on there just for fun to see what would happen, and at least 2 or 3 people poked their heads in and said hello, so that was lovely. I might continue doing that. I don't know, we'll just have to see how we go. So that's the first page. I don't feel like we've got very far at the moment. Let's see where we are. Right, onto the diodes. Right, there are only a few of these. Let's do this in real time. Diodes and ferrite ferrite beads. So we've got 3 of these, D1, D2, and 2 of these, D3, D4. That should be no bother. Oops. So I'll do these 3 first. And with these 3, as with any diode, you need to make sure you get this black line pointing at the right place. Now what do they have on here to let me know what we're looking for? So looking for D1, D2, D5, D3, D4, D5, D1, D2. Okay, so these are the little ones. They've got a white line on here which corresponds to the black line on the diode. And they go straight in. D5. Then these 2 fatter ones. Same deal really, but they've got a line is grey on the side there. And these are pictured slightly larger, D3 and D4 on the board. Same line, lines up. Goes in there. Try and keep those close to the board because they can be a bit wide. Make sure it goes around the right way would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's all right. Right, let's get those soldered in. Thick legs on these second lot of diodes. Tends to take a little bit longer to warm up. Lovely. Now with the ferrite beads you tend to use a couple of legs that you've just cut off. So we're going to hang on to these ones for the moment. Not sure whether I need the thick one or the thin one. So these little things are the ferrite beads. Let's try a thick leg. Yeah, that's probably the best. I forget what these do. Probably really important things like, I don't know, making sure that the ferrets don't get out. Okay, 2 of these, F1 and F2. F2, F1 down here. They tend to be together. Something to do with power. Now there's hardly any room in there for those capacitors. I'm sure they'll fit. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be fine. So next up is the ICs, or the IC holders, which is this bag of stuff. Okay, so I've got 5 little ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, I think I might do these in batches. I think that sounds like an idea, rather than having them all there at once and then turning it over and them all falling out. So what I'm going to do, I'll do this lot. I'm going to use my magic piece of stuff here to hold them in. So I'm going to hold it on here. Now I remember when I did some soldering with Look Mum No Computer, he said you can fold back. Has that worked? Possibly. You can fold back some of the spiky legs on IC holders in order to keep them in, but I kind of haven't found that work very well for me, so I'm going to go with that. What I'll do is I'll sort of tag each corner and then check it and then do the rest. But this is just soldering, so I'm not going to sit here and talk to you about it. I'm just going to put them all in and get on with it, and I'll see you on the other side. So there you go, IC holders all in. That was relatively easy, straightforward, no problem. Just tagging the corners, making sure that it's level, making sure you've got them the right way round so that the little nick in the front of the IC holder matches what's printed on the PCB, and you shouldn't go too far wrong. Now I don't tend to put the chips in at this point. I tend to put them in at the end in order to minimize the possibility of me leaning a soldering iron on them and breaking them. I'd much rather break a socket than break the chip. Because if I break a socket, if I melt the socket, I can always just snip it off and solder the chip directly to the board. That's always an option. But if I destroy the chip, that's kind of game over at that point. Right, so next up, I can get rid of the cramp in my fingers. Gee whiz. It's a little chilly. Right, it's also that fan, this fan going on to blow away the fumes. That's always a bit of a thing. We need warm air. So next up, bag B. Oh heck, this is all the headers and nonsense as well as capacitors. A lot of capacitors. Let's see what we've got. Oh, big chunky ones. Now capacitors usually have things written on them which can be very helpful, but not always, not these little slug ones. It can be really hard to see what heck and all they are. But let's keep at it. So let's see if we can identify all of these. Or as an LED, that'll be a different experience. So that we get these right. So it should be 19 of the little ones, the 100 ends. I'm going to need my magnifiers for this, undoubtedly. Okay, 104, 104. So these are probably all of them. I've got 20, I think. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I've got one extra. Yeah, I don't mind having one extra. One extra is fine, just provided that I've accounted for all of them. So that's that lot. Do those in a minute. Then there should be 8 270 picos, probably the blue ones. There seem to be a lot of those. The heck, they're so small I cannot see. 271, code 271, that's it, they're the fellas. 8 of those, good. 6 1Ns, usually these flat ones. No. Those are the 56s, which there should be another one of those. Oh, rats. So there should be 6, oh hang on, big ones. Yeah. So that's the 1NKs. Okay, I think we're doing the electrolytic capacitors separately. Electrolytics can go over there, that's the red one. And then there's a 1, do not place, it says. Okay, interesting. So just having a look at the next page. Yeah, electrolytic are all on the next page. I'm not going to worry about those. Good. I'm just going to get on with sticking all of these fellas into the right slot. So that's a big load of soldering. And I'll be back to you. I'll be back to you afterwards. Yeah, so that's all the non-electrolytic capacitors on. Not too bad. These strange blocky ones here, and my favourite ones down here, a little bit nicer. There's one that it says C51 should not be placed, which is here. Now I don't have a spare, so maybe that's what my spare one of these was for. So I do have one of these. It says 19, there should be 19, and I have 20, so I have one extra. So it's very possible that that in a previous version of this build went there, but currently it says do not place anything there, so I am not going to do it. I like to do what I'm told. So now moving on to the electrolytic capacitors. I should have 7 of the 10 microfarads, I suppose that is. 6 of another and 1 of another. 10 microfarads, that says. So that's those. Down here I should have 1, which is a 4.7. That's the 4.7. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the others. Okay, good. Long leg positive. Long leg positive. Now these ones have to go in the right way round on the board, so when you're looking for them you'll follow the nice round circles that are printed on the circuit board. Let's take one of these. And it should say the negative and positive bit on the board. So this is going to C6, long leg positive, long leg positive, C6, there's C6, says positive is there. Put the long leg into the positive first, other leg into the negative. Shuffle it down as far as it will go. Long leg positive. Still got a load of masking tape all over that bit. Never mind, that'll go in. That'll go in a little bit of welly. Oh, I hate these strips of stuff. I find them very annoying. Ouch. Somebody's probably got a tool with which you do this, I imagine. Okay, long leg positive, 26. 29, 16, 26, long leg positive in there. I have to tell myself every time. I have to sing it to myself. If I don't, I'm going to mess it up. You know, don't feel you're a pro. Because you don't have to sing long leg positive to yourself. 37. That is the way of madness. What's 37? Is that 37? Yeah, long leg positive. Long leg positive. Wiggle, wiggle. Long leg positive. So I'm going to solder these in and place the rest of the capacitors, and I will see you after. Right, that's all of the capacitors on there. It's looking pretty smart. It's coming together. I've now got to put on these regulators, the 4040 and the 7805. One big, one small. One goes in reg 1. One goes in 5 volt regs. That's 5 volt regs, so that's that big fella. And this one goes in reg 1, which is probably on the other board. Although I know nothing. No, look, there's reg 1, 1, 2, 3. Got a flat edge to it. Alright. There. Flat edge to that one. That goes in like that. Spread that out. This one goes next to it. And there's also the power connection, which goes on the bit that says power over there, facing out. Maybe it'd be good to do those two at the same time. Gonna fall out. No, I might have gone away with it. Might have gotten away with it, those three, that lot. Yeah, cool. Right. Sorry about the passing military jets. They do like to keep a watch. Oh, a little bit twisted. I'm sure that's fine. That's going to be the edge of the board there. So I reckon the best place to finish is going to be once I snap these boards off, because that seems to be the next thing to do. Let's take these apart. Before I do that, it says to place the ICs. Well, okay, I'll do what it says. I usually like to kind of leave it to the end, but you know, if you're going to be putting boards together, then it might be important to have these on. So there should be 4 TL072s, which are these ones here. Now, of course, I've got to put them in the right place, having put the holders over the top, so I'm not quite sure which ones are which. Oh, because you can no longer read the screen print. Darn it. Is there a picture? Yes, okay, so IC8 is the MCP6022, MCP6022, which is this one. Now this, I bring out my IC squashing tool, which is always a fantastic thing. Just pop the little fella in there, give it a squash, and it just straightens and brings in those legs so it drops into your socket brilliantly. So this is the one for IC12, which is in the middle of the second board here. And push that in, make sure it's the right way round, pointing up. Push that in, and these other 4 will go into the other 4-pin sockets. Make sure it's the right way around. Squeeze it in. See, without this tool, you're kind of flapping around trying to bend those legs in, because they're always splayed too wide. Whereas with this, it just drops in perfectly. Such a great thing. Of all the bits of advice I've had for soldering, this is the one that was of the most use, I should say, the most use. So those are all in. Then there's IC8, which is this one, which is the 074. This one. These chips start to become familiar after a while. I mean, I can't tell you off the top of my head what it is, but we come up against them all the time. So that's the nicks at the top. Slightly more difficult because of the size, but it rocks in nicely. Now, the other 4 are these long ones, 3320s. Now these are all pointing to the left. Often in DIY builds, they don't actually tell you when to put in the IC, so I actually quite appreciate that being in the manual, because I have had occasion where I put things together and I haven't put them in and I can no longer get to it. Because I don't like to put them in case I'm going to break them. Alright, I messed that up. Messed that up well and truly. Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, that's good. So I'm left with these 2 digit displays, but otherwise everything is in, and it says now it's a good moment to split the boards apart. So let's finish this by doing that, and then we'll call it a day at this point. I think it doesn't say to do anything else, it just says to split the boards. So I'm going to get another pair of pliers. So what you have to do is ply this end off. Ouch! Good lord, without pushing your finger into a whole row of what's-its. So take a pair of pliers and just bend it off. It's a bit scary, but it does come, and it is supposed to come. A little bit tricky around here. But if we can undo these bits, then hopefully we can snap them in the middle. There, that's all right. Now I've got a little bit of an edge which I can snip off. Potentially. Can maybe get to it with a bit of a craft knife or something. Over here. There. Pretty cool. So there's one board that has all of the clever stuff on. Here's the second board, which is going to be the faceplate. So these two are probably going to go like that, possibly like that, with this on the top. That's going to be the plan, but we're not there yet. We're on page 3, just finished page 3 of 10. So we've got a fair way to go onto the headers and sockets, and then the Teensy. So it's not over yet, not by a long chalk, but we're getting through it. And that is essentially, that's all the components on. It's just the front panel hardware and the headers that go between everything. That's really all that's left. So we've got a load of hardware in these two bags, and then the Teensy, little DSP board, and we're good. But that'll do for now, I think. I'll be back. Right, we're back in this. My hair's a little wild today, and it's bloody freezing in this shed today. Particularly with this fan pointed at me, but I have to work these things out. So where did we get to? Well, we got most of the soldering of the components done. By components, I mean resistors and capacitors, I guess. So now we're moving on to the pin headers in bag C, which is all this stuff, all this malarkey, I imagine. It's always my favourite bit. No, it's really not my favourite bit. But at least these appear to be cut to size, which is phenomenal, because it's the cutting the bloody things up that really drives me nuts. So this is looking alright. So let's get back to the manual. So place and solder the pin headers on the silk screen side of the main board. Alright, so another one of those, no idea which is the main board. Is this the main board or is this the main board? Is there something which tells me which is the main board? Oh, that always drives me nuts. So we have a main board and we have a control. Now is the control the one with the you know what? I'll ask. Why don't I ask? Oh damn it, I was just talking to Manu on the internet, and now he's gone off to have a cup of tea or something. But anyway, so I've got these two things and I've got these. Let's see if I can work out what on earth I'm doing next, because I'm suddenly befuddled and confused. So pin headers. So these are going to be the ones that have got pins on. There should be a 2x2, two of. They look like 2x2s. There should be a 2x5. That's a weird one. Could be that. That looks like a... oh, I don't know. No, let's go for a regular one. That looks like a very strange special thing. So I'm going to go for a 2x5. There's one of those. Another one of those. Then there's a 2x8. That's one of those. And there's one of those. Okay. I need to find con 1. Okay. So that's got a hashtag on it like the manual has, and these ones haven't. So this must be the main board. Alright, through process of elimination, where it's got written on here con 1, con 2, etc. Whereas on the control board, so the control board appears to be the one with the controls on. That makes some kind of sense. Although, you know, previously a control board would be the one that's got the brain on it, because the brain is controlling everything, as opposed to the front panel board. You see what I mean? Well, anyway, this one. We're going with this one. This one here. So we've got con 1 and con 3. Let's have a look. Con 1 over here, con 3. Now, which way up do I need them sticking out? Place them on the silkscreen side. Yeah. It's the shorter pins that you're soldering. Okay, so the shorter pins are going to go in there. Like that. And like that. And there's the 2x5s. So I've got it on con 2 and con 4. Con 2. Con 4. And the last one is con 5. Like that. So I'm going to have to solder those in without them going wobbly or falling out. So I'm going to go for my magic piece of stuff over the top. Trying to make sure it doesn't really wobble. Got one here. Trying to keep it as flat as possible. Just giving them all a single pin. And hopefully we can look at all those and just admire the awesome straightedness. Great stuff. Good. Right, socket connectors. So on the other side, the things that are going to be plugging into, which will be these fellas. I should think. They all go onto this board. Place the socket connectors on the control board over the silkscreen markings here. Double check that they are perfectly straight. Now, there's one school of thought which would say putting these together would be the best way to solder them. If I was to put these on top of what I've soldered. Although, I don't know, maybe that's a little bit hard. But I could, and that way I can be sure that it will go back together again. After you've pulled it apart. So that is that. I mean, in some ways I'm surprised they didn't suggest that, which makes me also wonder if this is a good idea. So I'm going to see, just going to see whether this is a fool's idea, as it may well be. So I've got to get all those spiky bits to line up at the same time. And maybe there just isn't enough. There isn't going to be enough leeway. I don't know. I think that's pretty good. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to solder that. Because I think that's okay. I'm going to do it that way. Look at me making my own decisions. That's not going to bite me in the arse at all, is it? Good gracious, no. So now that should just pull apart nice and easy, nice and beautifully, and then I know that it will go back perfectly next time. That's the idea. Great, those done. Preparing the Teensy and the Codec. So that's these two things, I believe. Now we're going to place the Teensy and the Codec. Please follow the instructions carefully. Make sure orientation and placement is good before soldering. Check picture. Pictures always appreciated. Place all the pins, socket connectors, all the pins on the PCB to fit Teensy and the codec size at the component side, but do not solder them. So this, according to the picture, is going on here. So there should be a 1x8 pins. Are we looking at pins? Yeah, 1x8. That's too many. That one, 1x8, and a 1x14. Oh, there should be 2 lots of them. Oh yeah, there must be the 14s. Those fellas. Place pin headers into sockets. So these are their corresponding sockets, and they want us to put them in. Place pin headers. Okay, place all pins on the PCB. Okay, to fit it first. Alongside. But if I'm not soldering it, then I can I can put these together now. So like that. Try not to stab myself in the fingers. Okay. Long bit goes in. Okay. So where do I put these? Place all PCBs to fit Teensy on the component side. Do not solder them. Okay, IC 11 here. Alright, I'm talking about this great big long big bit here. Right. So pins down there. And this one. There. Long ones are squeezing in. I did that completely wrong on that one. So pins are going down there. This one is backwards. Put it around the right way. Alright. So that's all pins down, little pins in. Place the Teensy the right way round according to the picture. It's going to go like that. I think it's snowing or something. Sailing or sleeting or something's going on out there. Right, this little slug, Befaco written on it, needs to go this way up onto here. That's in like that. That's in like that. That's the right way up. Little button. USB port over here. Befaco name facing up. Yeah, looks like the picture. Watch the footprint for orientation. What? Do this gently. Oh right, I did it quite gently. Double check they're all perfectly straight. Once all the pins are in place, proceed to solder them, pushing down the Teensy and the what's it gently. Alright, well this seems to be saying that I solder here. I'm not soldering actually on the board yet. Let me check the next page of my instructions. Remove the Teensy and place the Pogo pin header. Pogo header? What's a Pogo header? Is that this weird one? But, right. Alright, so confusion now. Now we will place the Teensy and the codec. Please follow the instructions carefully. I'm trying, I'm really trying. Make sure the orientation and placement is good before soldering. Check picture. Place all pins on the PCB to fit Teensy and codec size at component side. Doing that. It's right here. Do not solder them. 2 1x8s, 2 1x14s. Long sides of Teensy footprint. Yes. Place pin headers into the sockets. The long side of the pins will fit in. Yes. Place the Teensy, yeah, and the codec boards on the pins. Watch the footprint for orientation. Do this gently. Double check they're perfectly straight. Once all the pins are in place, proceed to solder them, pushing down this and this gently. Well, that's what I'm going to have to do. That's the important thing. What we do about this next is a whole other world. So let's just do this bit and see what happens. Drama. Drama, that's what you call it. Okay. So I'm going to push down on this a little bit. Just trying to keep it. That's really nicely solid. So I'm going to do a pin there. I'll do a pin the other side. That looks good. Do this little pin. It's chucking down something. Sounds like we're under attack. Good, right, so I've done what I've been told. They're soldered and in place, at least at this end. They're not soldered on the other side yet, because I haven't been told to do that. Right. So the Pogo pin header, I'm back to this again. I don't know what else to do. Remove the Teensy and place the Pogo pin header on the PCB. So I'll remove the Teensy. Alright, it's a little bit jammed in there. So if I'm removing it, I'm having to remove it with its legs on, yeah? Like that. And take the Pogo header, which I'm assuming is this fella here, the one with the weird bits on it. And this is a 2x5, which it is. Place the Teensy by pushing the double check they load up and then solder them. Well, I mean, that has to go there then. That must be what it means. I've got this little capacitor a little bit in the way. So that squishes down there. Oh look, you see underneath there's all these traces. That must be what those are going to be attaching to. I don't know. Is that right? Pogo. I mean, is there anything else? Am I missing another component? I don't know. So that goes... Alright, so just go with what you think is happening. That goes on there. And this has to go back in somehow. So I'll remove this one for a minute. Right, well confused. Right, I'm back. Back with good news. I've just spoken to Manu at Befaco. Thanks, mate, for taking my call. And I know what's going on now, I think. Okay, just to rewind a bit. What we're doing is we're trying to put the Teensy and this thing called the Codec onto the board. And I got a little bit confused by the text, what they were trying to get me to do. And what, in fact, I've ended up doing is put it on upside down. Now, that doesn't actually matter. It doesn't matter. What I should have done is put the socket into here and then the pins into it. So what you should be doing at this point, you should be putting in... Now, I could theoretically take these apart. Is that going to be too difficult? Okay. No, I can. Look. All right. Look. So, what I should have done, you see this here? Anyway, that's all what I should have done. So this socket, put this socket all 4 sockets into the board. So face down, socket, 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 socket. Yeah, got that. Then don't solder them, just put them on the board. Then take the pins, put those in, or you can put them in separately if you like, but put the sockets into the board so they're standing up on that. Then put the pins into them so they're all standing up here. And then with the short end sticking up, so it's, you know, the thick end, long end has gone into the socket, short end, put your Teensy on top of that. Now I've done it upside down, so I'm going to put my pins into the board and my sockets into the top of that, and then I've soldered the Teensy into the pins on the socket rather than the other way around. Does it matter? Does any of this matter? No, not really. But this is just the first step. So let's put all that back in together. Okay, so this ideally should be the other way around. Now at this point we do need to solder these into the board. It doesn't really mention that particularly explicitly. It talks about soldering, and I thought it meant solder here, which it does also mean here, but it also means into the board as well. So this needs to be able to be put in the board, and then it will come apart because you'll pull the Teensy out, which is soldered, and that will come with its either its socket or its pins, depending on which way up you've soldered that, and that will allow you to take that off, which you do need to do because we have the Pogo, which I'll come on to in a minute. Pogo is very exciting. So what hopefully you would have done is place your socket in, put your pins in the top, place your Teensy on the top. That's all through. That's quite tight in there, quite tight around this chip and the various capacitors which are in there. But that's in. And then this one, this little thing does exactly the same, just alongside with as the picture. Let's put them in the right holes. Goes alongside like that, yeah? So this now needs to be soldered on the other side to secure it all. Now remember, it can still come off, which I had a brain freeze about. It can still come off because this is a socket and pin. So that's still going to be not a problem. Now how you do this in a nice and straight way is perhaps difficult. Now, I mean, Manu suggested that you just sort of tag the corners just so it's straight, and then turn it over and tag the corners here, check that it's straight, and then do the top or the bottom. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put this down, use something under there to level it out. And with that I can feel the button, but that should be more or less straight. If I do the corners of one of them there, there's a spider, like right there. What do you want? What do you want with me? Get out of it. Anyway. So I've just done some corners and make sure that's all in as far as it can go. Yeah. I think so. Yeah, looking good. I'll do the rest of that. Now there are some bits here which are very, very close to each other. Those solder pads, and they must not go across each other. So maybe at this point I can zoom this in just a little bit further, like that. Let's get some closeness on this. So right here, right here, got to go easy. A couple of other places this solder hasn't taken quite as well as I'd expect it to. Get rid of any excess. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and I'll continue along the line for the Teensy. Careful. Now Mano did say to me that it's a tough build. It's not an easy one. So you have to be a bit careful. Okay, good. So that's all in. Now, so on to the next bit, this Pogo thing that had me had me confused. It's like, what is it? What is it thing? This is the Pogo. Okay, why is it called a Pogo? Look, ready? Look. Because it's got springy ends. Springy ends, look. There, look, see? Springy ends. Just brilliant. So, this goes underneath the Teensy and sort of scrapes onto some pads that are on the underside. So it's not soldered to it, it just rests on it because it gets pushed down, and that amount of pressure, that force, that springiness is holding it in place. Now in order to put it in, you've got to take the Teensy out. Now I suddenly thought, oh my god, my Teensy is soldered in, but of course it isn't. It's not, because it's just in a socket. So you just have to ease it out. A little bit. Yeah, that's easy. Okay, there it comes, there it comes. There we go. So, as I say, mine is upside down, so I've got the sockets on my Teensy rather than the pins. But there we go. Hopefully yours will look slightly better. So this, going into this bit here. And so, that all of this points up further than it needs to. So when this goes back on, it's going to push down on to these bits here. See all of that? Awesome. Absolutely awesome. So yeah, that had me confused. Just got to make sure that's as flat as humanly possible, otherwise it's just not going to work. So it must rest nice and flat. Put this on over the top and you should be able to see if it's looking relatively flat. And this, the way it's come through here on this side, that's completely even and flat, which is awesome. So let's solder that in. Slightly strange, thick thing to solder. It's difficult to get the iron into to heat the pad. It looks well weird. I'm not convinced by that at all. So when I get to the testing stage and the whole thing doesn't work, that is going to be the main thing to look at, I think. It's slightly weird. Okay, good. Trucking along, nearly on this last bit before we get to the front panel. And it says 3 position switches. Haven't seen the switches. I guess they are in this bag, which we'll be getting to, I guess, in a minute. But let's fish these out. So there should be three position switches. Do they mean there's 3 switches? 2 circuits, 3 position. 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it's these ones, not this one. That's only a 2 position switch. These fellas here. So these have to go on somewhere. It says it should be labelled switch 1, 2, 3. The switches are obviously going to be sticking out of the front of this fella here. Well, that gives us a clue as to where they are. Look, they're here. They're something to do with 3 filters worth of high pass, low pass, and band pass. That's interesting. So where have they gone? They're here. Oh, I got a terribly bent leg. Terribly bent leg. Where's my tweezers? That's better. Now, do they go one way or another? Does it matter? Doesn't say that it does. So switch 1 is there. Switch 2, going to put it exactly the same way around. Sort of fits in right next to it, using up the same hole. And this last switch is a little bit further over here. Perfectly straight. So this is one of these, going to have to lean it upside down. That's pretty good. And got to be super careful that I don't melt things while I'm soldering. I mean, that's good. That's good advice. It's good advice anytime. Let's have a look. Right, so in here, see if I can get that to look good. One here. One here. Yeah, all good. Just get on with it then. Getting between these two mountains here. This is tricky. This is tricky stuff. Tricky's tricky. I've not melted anything, which is unusual for me. I tend to melt things. Oh, that's going to melt, isn't it? Come on. Move it around. Move it around. Make it easier for yourself a little bit. Good. I think I got away with it. Great. Spacers. Secure the spacers onto the control PCB. What did I decide the control one was? This one. Through the 3 holes of the silver outline. 1, 2, 3. With the main body of the spacer on the component side and the nut on the opposite. So I'm assuming it's talking about these. So they go up. Like that. With a little nut on. That into that. Okay. So these, how is it going to go together? This way up. Like that. Okay, but not yet. So it says that we're nearly at the end. It says the next part is critical, takes a good bit of concentration, in which case I'm going to go and get some lunch, I think. If you're feeling a bit strained, a break would definitely help. Reply to those unread messages or prove someone wrong on the internet. Okay, mechanical parts are really delicate. You need your full attention. Good, in which case I'm going to turn off that and the fan, which has made me freezing cold. And I will go and get something to eat. And then come back and we'll deal with this front end of it all. Alright, we're back. It's still cold, but I've now got the sun streaming in through one of our windows and capturing the greyness in my beard, which is perhaps all the more appropriate. So, front panel connections. Here we go. Here we go. This is it, boys and girls. Here we go. Let's see what happens next. So these components must not be soldered until they are placed and fully attached to the front panel. This is going to be key. So what we're going to be doing is going to be sticking a load of stuff on the front of here, on here. But this must be fixed on so that they all remain properly in place. Otherwise you're never getting it on or off again. So there are two reasons for this. It says the height of the panel components are not all the same because of this. If not attached properly before soldering, they're not going to stay properly seated. So they're going to need to be sort of pulled against the front panel and then soldered underneath. That's the idea. Second reason, it's difficult to align components to the holes if it's not positioned prior to soldering, of course. Yes. Right. Here we go. Mini jacks. Place the mini jacks on the PCB, ensuring they are on the side with the silkscreen. All these little fellas here. Some of the mini jack ground legs will share the same holes. Thank you for saying that. I think that's useful. Don't solder them until the front panel is in place with the nuts screwed on. This way, it is easier to solder them in the right position. Keep in mind the front panel holes are quite narrow, almost impossible to place it if the components are already soldered. Right. So let's do that. So all of these are the patch sockets. And did it tell us anything about it? No, they just go where they go, I think is the key. Now you tend to have 3 holes. One for that little front leg. If you put that in first and push against it, that usually works. So that seems to be all of those. I'm just going to go back to make sure that we do actually solder these. Don't solder them until the front panel is in place. This way it's easier to solder them. So yeah, I think we're doing these bits by themselves. So what we're going to do, so we're going to shuffle this on top. Rewind a second. Okay, got ahead of myself. I read it again. Then I read it again and still didn't quite get it right. So I'm not doing these by themselves. It's sort of in the wording, it sort of makes you feel, you know, you're going to solder these once the front panel is on. Well, I'll put the front panel on then. Just not really what they meant. What they're saying is, just to reiterate this one more time, is that we're going to be putting all of the front panel stuff on. The whole lot. Before we solder any of it. Because there's no way I'm going to know this is right until everything else is on it. Yeah? Does that make sense? So just put that to one side. Let's not be so eager. Got my patch sockets in. Good. Now the pots apparently are tricky. There's a lot of them. And they're all... Ugh. So this says don't solder them yet. Before going ahead, take this into consideration. Check the pot holes. Might be easier to put these in before the sockets, you know. Check the pot holes because some of the holes on here are very, very small. It suggests you can make them bigger with a pair of tweezers. We're going to see how this goes first, but these, yeah, these here are particularly small. Pots are really tight. Be super careful when soldering as it's easy to burn headers or short with other close pins or exposed vias. Now vias, I've now been informed, are essentially sort of cylinder tubes that go from one side of the PCB to the other. They're like, yeah, the silvered holes is essentially what we're talking about, that take a trace from one place to another. That's what a via is. One of the location lugs might need to be cut. Check silkscreen for details. Rightio. Well, let's just do it one at a time. Pot A1. At the top there. Pot A1. Goes there. Ah, you see, there's a cross on the silkscreen. So the cross on the silkscreen is telling me that there is no space for that side lug on that particular one. Take a pair of something or other. Take this side. And twang that off. Get that in there. Now pot A2 is doing the same but the other way. Well, I didn't have any bother with that after them saying there could be a lot of bother with that. But we don't yet have the front panel on, so still holding it all together at the moment. Cool. Switch in the right place. Don't solder them. There's one. Go to a place called source. Okay, got that in there on my sticky fingers. Encoder. That must be this fella. This greeny one with a weird legs. Goes in this bit in the middle. Pull this one out. I've messed up this leg here. Let's see if I can get that back. Let's push it down. That's in. Good job. Don't solder it. Yeah, leave a hex nut placed on the encoder. Right, placed on the encoder. So give it the right height. So I'm going to take this one particular nut rather than one of the nice Befaco style nuts. Good. LEDs. LED. Long leg positive. Don't solder. There's the LED. Positive is on that side. Long leg. Poke that in. Little displays. Place a display miner. The dot will face down. Don't solder yet. So this way round, the dot is going to be down. They have a lot of pins. Cool. Right, so that is all of that hardware put on, as far as I can work out. This is going to be going on here, but not quite yet, because there's a little windows I need to put on. Place the plastic windows into the display holes from the back side of the panel. Remember to remove the protection plastic. Use some hot glue to stick it. Oh. Really? Oh, don't know that I've got anything like that to hand, but let's just take the film off. Because previously, with putting things like windows in, they tend to have enough tension within themselves just to hold in place. Oh, is that it? Was there not? It said on both sides. I can't see any on this side. Is there anything on this side? Yeah, there is. So if it looks a tiny bit blue, it means there's still stuff on it. Attach the front panel until it fits. Right, so I'm keeping this way up at the moment just so that they don't fall out. So yeah, I'm a complete idiot. Oh my goodness me. So of course those bits are going to fall out. How am I going to reconcile this? This is the question. I'll put those back in, you dipstick. So this has to turn over and go on here. So how am I going to keep those in if I don't have glue to hand? So they're just going to fall out, or at least one of them is. If I was to use a tiny bit of tape, is that going to work? I could try. Right. Right, look at the state of that. I don't know if that's worth the effort or not. I'm just going to go with it. Okay, I'm going with it. Maybe we'll be taking this off and I can then do something about that. Who knows? Anyway, for the moment, This is going to go on here, and it's just going to drop on without any bother. Good Lord, is it? Look at the state. Look at the state of it. So use a pair of tweezers, and what you do is just adjust stuff until it all goes down. Because these pots are kind of all over the place. Okay, pots are good. What's the next trouble? What am I on? Snagging on now. Top of switches. No. Let's go. Oh, LED. Yeah, LED. So I'm going to have to lift it off the ground. Oh, that switch is caught there. Oh, there. One of the knobs was just kind of the shoulder of it was just too far up. That's good. That's much better. Now with the display, these are actually sat back against the PCB, but I'm assuming that when I turn it over, these will fall forward, which means they'll also hold the windows on. So that could be good. Okay, screw in the parts in this order. Mini jacks, then pots and encoder. Take off the Teensy and Codec to be able to solder the points below. Ensuring all of the parts are flush, perfectly parallel, then solder them. Mini jacks, so they want them on first. So generally speaking, with the red and black banana nuts, whatever it is that Befaco calls these, outputs tend to be red, inputs tend to be black. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outputs. So if I do all of these as outputs, that should make sense. And then everything else should be, there's some wider ones which are going to be for the pots, and the thinner ones, it's not a whole lot in it, are going to be for the jack sockets. You see the difference between the two there? It's barely a difference. Now somewhere I've got a very handy Befaco tool, and this helps me wind these up so that they are at least finger tight. So this is going to be pulling the front panel, securing it to the mini jacks. Good, that's looking fine. Looking fine. This can still all pull out, so let's not get too excited. Then we can add the pots. Okay, so as you put those in and tighten them up, you can feel some of them like pulling up just to get the right height, so that they're not, I mean, had you soldered those in to start with, that would all be a complete disaster. It would all be completely wrong, because these sit up quite high, do you see? Yeah? Whereas these are completely flat. And yeah, there's some soldering to do inside. Inside there. There's also this annoying LED that I might do sooner rather than later, just to get that out of the way. So, screw all the parts in order, mini jacks, pots and encoders, take off the thingy, ensuring all the parts are flush. You can solder them. I think that's great. So I have to take off these bits. Like so. Pogos. Right. I've got a whole shed load of soldering to do in here now. All these legs, and I've got to be very, very careful not to accidentally fill in holes where I shouldn't be. Because that's what those vias are. They're always those holes that don't seem to do anything. That's what they are. That makes sense now. That makes sense. Right. So I'm going to get to soldering this. I will see you on the other side. That I think was pretty good. So a lot of soldering. Now there's three things I haven't done. I haven't done the LED, and I also haven't done these two things here. So I'm not sure about I'm not very sure about them. I think because it's difficult to turn them over and get them exactly straight, I think I just have to sort of wiggle them here, and then they'll be up against the screen, and that'll keep the screen there. So that's what I need to do. Pretty sure I need to do that. With the LED, you've just got to find its little hole, and it's there. So I think so. Keep those flat. I think those are going to work out. So I'm just going to finish off those little bits. Sure that's in its spot. That's really high. That's better. And there were some tricky ones in here, that's for sure. I think I managed to do it without melting anything, which will be a first. Yeah, and the LED's there, yeah. All good, finish that off. One of those displays is a little bit flatter and clearer than the other, but never mind. Good enough. Good enough. Good. Now, put the knobs on. Knobs? Where were they? Here we go. Good. Yep. Now, in terms of knobbage, I wonder how it should be. I think I might need a picture of the actual module at this point. Okay, so it looks like that. So it's a dark grey knob up there, light grey big knob at the bottom, middle size one down here, this one, turn it all the way left, line it up, cut off, gets a slightly larger knob. One black knob with a white end, one without an end, which I think is for the encoder. See encoder just go round? It does. So it doesn't really care where that is. So let's put that up in the middle somewhere. I don't know. Have it pointing north. I quite like how they sit on those black banana nut things that Befaco do. I think that's quite smart. I like that. Okay, lighter grey here. It's a darker one. I'm sure it will make sense at some point. I mean, that is looking pretty awesome, I think. Don't you think? I think that's looking pretty awesome. I think that's looking pretty awesome. It's noise. Noise it is. Noise. Plethora or plethora. Now put the both boards together. This way up. Like that. Put all the chips in. These are just going to fold onto each other beautifully without any bother. Yeah. Screw holes. Power cable. Which comes out the bottom here. Should only go in one way around because it's got a little bit sticky outy there, which goes into the sticky outy bit. Right, we're back. It's now so cold I'm wearing a scarf. It's alright. It's alright, honestly. I have survived many, many winters in this place. So don't worry, it's just a bit chilly today. So we finished the thing yesterday, and I've got lots of things to do today, but the one thing I should do first is just plug this in to test it, to see that it works. If it works, brilliant. If it doesn't, I don't know, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, right? So I've got a bit of modular here. Nothing too important in case it all just blows up. It's not on. I'm going to plug this in here. And I may have to flash the firmware. So all I'm looking for at the moment is some lights, and then I'll do a bit of a firmware update and we'll see where we get to. Ready? Are we ready? Yeah, we're ready. Good. Power. I get a light in one of those. Okay. Well, that's good. Hold for bank. Okay, so I'm getting... oh, now it's no longer working. Oh, it's working there for a minute. Bank. Okay, not working. Off bank. Oh, see, that was spinning round. I saw that spinning. That number. Let's turn it off and on again. Okay, look. 6. Okay, so I got 1 to 9 working on there. That definitely worked. And I can tap it, nothing happens, tap it, and I'm back. So that's something. If I hold it, I can then swap between A, B and C, different banks. If I hold it again, it then comes off bank. Okay, so some working, some not quite working. Damn it. Well, I can definitely have a look at that second digit display, because that's relatively simple thing to check as far as the soldering goes. Before I take it apart though, I will check to see whether there's some sound coming out. How easy is that to do? So let's take an output from there, plug it into my Veils, which is also not on. That should be on, shouldn't it? Something. None of these are on. If I plugged any of those in, good gracious. All right. Okay, definitely getting sound through. Definitely getting something on my scope over here. That's quite exciting. Need that to go into something useful. There we go. Oh, flipping it, that's exciting. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I've not heard this sound from this at all. I have no preconceptions or anything about what it's supposed to sound like other than knowing it creates different forms of noise. But that was pretty flipping epic. The other side of it. What is going on? What the heck is this thing? Okay, so, you know, mostly working, getting outputs. What happens over here? Gritty, filtered white. Oh. Okay, that's white. Grit. Oh yeah. And then filtered. Is there anything to do with that? No, it doesn't seem to be. What the heck is this thing? Right, so fascinating although that may be. Oh, I also haven't updated the Teensy, so that might be a factor. All sorts of factors. Right, let me check the soldering, I think, first on that LED. That's probably going to be the first thing I need to do, because that, not the LED, on that display, because that is possibly a simple fix. Let's say it's a simple fix, shall we? Let's say that it is. Where do I have to get to get to that? Behind here. So I'm going to have to take off these bits. But, you know, sound-wise, relatively successful at this point. Rats! Lost that screw. Okay. So, the screens, the two little things are here, and it's the bottom one, which is a problem. So let's get some new solder into this bit. 5, there's no shorting that I can see. Now there's a resistor there that isn't soldered. Fancy that! Let's give that a go, and I'll just reflow all around these bits. It's funny, it doesn't know how many times you look at the board. There's still opportunities to completely miss things. Okay, let's put it back together, try it out again. No. Okay, that wasn't it. So I've got a firmware update. Now I need the information on this piece of paper says check the module works right before updating the firmware. Yeah, if you're unsure about this, unplug the Teensy board, do the firmware update with the Teensy board alone. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to take the Teensy off. Okay, setting up a thing. Device is ready. Serial USB serial device. No, I have no idea how to do this. Let's see what I can find out. How to flash a Teensy. Connect your Teensy to a computer. Launch Teensy loader. Right, that's going to be a good thing to know. Okay, Teensy loader. Press button on Teensy to enter program mode. Okay, operation. Reboot. File, open hex file. Program. Ooh, flashing lights. So that should be it. That should be all that's required. Now I need to look again at the soldering around this one that's not working. I'm going to go into double magnification for this one. Let's have a look in. Now, is there any short? Anything looking crap? Right, let's put it back together again. Give it another go. Yes! Oh my goodness me. Oh yes. Oh! Oh! Right, let's see if there's any sound out of that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have some success. I've got both my digits working. I've got All my outputs working. I don't even know what this one at the bottom does. Well, this is a crazy thing. I've never heard anything quite like it. That's completely nuts. So there we go. That's the Befaco Noise Plethora. That's the build. It was quite a tough build, a long build, I think, but it didn't really give me any problems. I mean, Befaco were telling me that it is very tight. You have to be very careful. But, you know, yeah, it is, but not to the point where I couldn't do it or it was frustrating. I mean, just with, I haven't changed the end of my soldering iron to some sort of thinner one or anything. No, you just put the solder where you're supposed to put it. I mean, that's kind of how it works. So that was not a bother. Had a little bit of trouble with the old Teensy and trying to understand what the manual was telling me in how you put that together. But that all came together all right, even if it is back to front or upside down or whatever it is that's happened. Programming the Teensy, I mean, you shouldn't have to do that if you've purchased a kit of this, because it should all be completely updated. So you wouldn't worry about that. But funnily enough, I was able to do it with a quick Google with the hex file and just following a couple of instructions. It was very simple, very easy to do. So no bother there. The manual doesn't go into any depth about testing it or calibrating it. There doesn't seem to be anything about that. So, or maybe hang on, have I got to the end? Maybe I haven't even got to the end. I assumed that was the end. And it is. Okay, so yeah. So there's nothing on that at the moment. So hopefully what I've done is helpful. But what I will do, I'll do a separate video on exploring what this thing is all about. Because at the moment, all I know is it makes noise. Oh, a heck of a load of noise. That's just amazing. And there's evidently programs, and you tap it to change the one on the top half. These two I think are identical. You hold it to get a bank number up, A, B or C. Just totally mad. So awesome. There's some fun to be had with there. I think Manu suggested to me that combining it with a Perkle is a good idea, because what this is like it's like a percussive envelope. You stick the sound source into it and you use this essentially to envelope it into a percussive sound. So combining the noise from that through this could be pretty awesome. Don't know. I'm going to try that out, definitely. But for now, I think at the end of this build, it's taken quite a bit of time. It needs a little bit of time to put it all together, but it appears to be a success. A little bit of reflowing at the end there, a little bit of panic, but nothing that I couldn't cope with, because I'm such an old pro at this sort of thing these days. So I hope that was fun. You know, do all those things like subscribe and throw me money and things. I always respond well to tips. Or if you think I'm an idiot, then do post about it in the comments. I enjoy reading those sorts of things. It's like tuning a radio. Fantastic. So there you go. The Noise Plethora. And in the meantime, go and make some tunes.